Well, Corey, thanks for being on the show today as we talk about work-life balance, and you got some wisdom to share because you're really living this out. We'll talk about marriage and a couple other things, culture as it comes up. You're the pastor of the Rock Church here in Raleigh. You planted a couple of years ago, and so we've been in contact. That's how we first met. I honestly don't remember. You'll have to remind me how we first got introduced, and also you are an undercover FBI agent. So we're going to talk about
Right.
how you do both of these
It's
things.
hilarious.
So Corey, thanks for being on today.
Man, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure, and I really appreciate your time, man. Uh,
How did we get connected? I don't remember. Do you?
I was listening to the podcast you did with Practical Church.
Oh,
This
okay.
was right before the pandemic, and used to live about 2 minutes from where your church used to be. And so I said, "Oh, this guy's church planner. His church down the street." And so I reached out via email and just asked you to meet for coffee. I decided
That's
I'd take a
funny.
chance and just let's meet this guy. He said some good stuff on his podcast, so that's it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing great stuff. So you're the Rock Church. You're in Raleigh. You're also bivocational, and so you've been doing that, and you've been doing that the whole time. So you've been working your other job, and you've been doing this thing. And so we talk about work life. I think sometimes some people might be like, well, it's easy for maybe pastors to say because they don't have to do, they're they're not doing all these things, or they're just doing
Yeah.
their own thing, and my job is stressful, all these hours, and you're doing all the things. So I joke that you're an undercover FBI agent, although you might be because you couldn't tell me if you were.
Right.
But you can you not necessarily have to share like your normal life, your normal job, but like how do you like what does it look like for you? What do you do, and how do you do both of these things together?
Yeah, so I'm not FBI, that's for sure. I do work as a background investigator as a government contractor. So for folks who need security clearances, stuff like that, military, prison workers, federal workers.
Sounds like
Um,
an FBI agent, but go
yeah, it's
ahead.
close enough. If you see the badge, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I've been doing that, and I work part time. I've been part time for about 4 years now, so I work about 30 hours a week doing that. And I went part time right before we launched the church, and so, but in the flow of a week between that, wife and kids, and then leading the church as well, it can be challenging to balance all of that. And so, what I really try to do, one, I have a job where my hours are. I can somewhat flex my schedule. So I think the biggest thing that helps me is having a job where I don't necessarily have to clock I don't have to drive to an office and be there at 9 from 9 to 4, whatever. So I think that helps where I work from home, my home office. I set appointments throughout the week and throughout the day. And so I think for me, it helps to have a job that is a little flexible. So if I have to stop that job to go, let's say, visit someone in a hospital or take an appointment, take a coffee or a lunch with a church member, I'm able to kind of build my schedule out for the week to where, hey, I'll block out that hour to take that appointment. And then, maybe if I'm doing it in a part of town where I'm already going to be for work, I'll stop and take the coffee. And then once I finish that, I'll continue on with my day job. And so for me, it takes a lot of planning. I live on Google Calendar. Every single day, I'm checking it multiple times a day. I'm adding stuff. I'm color coordinated to the max on my Google
All
Calendar.
right.
I love it. It's one of the best things I've ever used as far as planning my schedule out. And so it helps me out. I think the combination of, like I said, the flexibility of my day job can help. I can imagine it's probably more challenging if you like have to be at a particular place at a particular time. But for myself, it works out to where I don't have to do that. And then church kind of, as you know, church stuff comes and goes. The nature of the
Yeah.
job, it's not always the same. So
Yeah, and I can appreciate the flexibility, of your
yeah,
of your FBI job is, helpful, but it's still you have to do it. And then,
yeah,
I think one of the challenges, I'm not one of those people that like ministry is the hardest thing ever. I think any job you have has got difficulties and
yeah,
hardships. And so
absolutely.
I do think one of the challenges to ministry is just the emotional toll it takes, even if
Yeah,
it's not always the hours. And so you're trying to, not just, doing the other job and doing this thing. That just weighs on you, trying to do
yeah.
both those things. I'm curious. I'm a Google Calendar guy as well. I'm not like the most naturally organized, although I feel like I've developed a skill of being an organizer in my life. All of my Google Calendar is the same color and it is blue.
Oh, really? Oh,
So
man.
can you, I don't know, what's your, have you always done this? And if not, how did you develop, like, what's this, just practically, how do you do this?
Well, I like to see the different colors. So what I did, I started Google Calendar maybe pandemic time, something like that. And what I did, I just found colors that work. So I will make everything for work is like purple. Everything for my like personal ministry stuff or church stuff, is like green. church events are orange. Orange is like the main color for our church. So I make all of those big church events, Sunday Bible studies, big events, orange. Personal appointments, I'll have them like red or like a dark blue. So it's really kind of a thing like that. I just kind of gone through and I try to put everything in a category of about 4 to 5 things. Everything generally is falling. Even
Right.
it's a personal thing, it's ministry. We have a family calendar, so that's like a different shade of blue. As I'm explaining it, I'm like, this is a lot, but it works for me. And when I look at the colors, I can easily kind of recognize it, catch it, and I know what's coming up. So it really works. I like it, and I'm on it every single day.
So when you schedule though, you gotta put the event in Google, and then you also have to change. You have to select the color, the type of event it is.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
like on iCloud, they have like you can have like 6 or 7
Yep.
different calendars on iCloud. And I just have color coordinated them and named them. And now I just kind of mentally know when I see that color, I know what it is.
Yeah. So I mean, yes, you've got two kids. Your wife also has her own little business going.
She does.
I'm curious, maybe to make this practical. 5 years ago, you start this church plant thing. You're working your job. You start your multicolored Google Calendar. What advice? I don't know. As you've learned these last 5 years, that you go back and say, man, here's some things you need to think through and consider as you're planning all these different things you got going on.
Yeah, so I think one of the first things I realized is that, and it helped me, especially adding in the church aspect of it, but just in life in general, is that I really took the long view. And instead of I said, okay, I'm working this job. My wife works as well. She has a business. We have kids. I try to set my life up. I've tried to and continue to set it up to where, how can I do this in a sustainable way?
Mhm.
And so for me, it really helps me to I feel like I've slowed down the pace of how I do things, so that I can do it for a long time. And so instead of trying to cram in, a lot of church events, a lot of stuff for work, massive family stuff ripping and running all over the place, for me, it helps to say, hey, how can I set up to where I am doing enough for the church? I'm managing my job. I'm managing my family. I'm spending time with my wife. I really try to, if someone else is running at a pace of 9, I'm like, I'm gonna run at a 6.5 or a 7,
Mhm.
because I know if for me, if I crank it up to a 9, I'm gonna be burned out. I'm gonna be stressed out. I'm gonna be sick. My wife is gonna hate me. The kids are gonna, all that stuff. And so for me, I look at how can I do this in a sustainable way, and I've tried to set up my schedule and my calendar and my commitments, to say, man, you want to be around for a long time. I want to be married for a long time. I want my kids to love me even when they are adults. I want to hang out. And so there's some things I just, it's really cliche to say, just say no, but there are some things I've decided that I can't be involved in that right now. Maybe in a different time in life, maybe when my kids are teenagers, I'll get involved in it. Maybe when they're out of the house, or maybe, when my job changes or the church changes, I'll get involved. But I think a healthy no and realizing what is sustainable for you, that works out for
Yeah.
me.
And we've talked over the years. One of the kind of challenges, unique challenges in ministry is, you see social media, see what other churches are doing, and you feel like our church has to be doing all the things as well. And you've talked about how, like, yeah, man, I got 2 jobs, a family, like we're going to do this sustainably. What do you have like any, I don't know, like principles or rhythms? Like, how do you know if you're doing too much? Is there like guardrails for how you plan your life? Or is this kind of like intuitive? I shouldn't be doing all these things.
Yeah, yeah. For me, honestly, I really feel like it's intuitive. I think that's a great word for it. I can feel when I'm doing too much. One, my body tells me when I'm doing too much. But then also two, I'm a type of person that, I definitely go off. I have to do what feels right. It has to be a certain level of conviction. And that's why I do a lot of things and don't do. I may not have always the words to say, this is right, this is wrong. I have a itemized list of why I should or shouldn't, but sometimes it comes down to a deep conviction in my heart, like, man, that's not right. There's just something about that is not right. And for me, being a person of faith, I pray about it, and I'm, try to use wisdom. And if it just doesn't sit right in my heart, in my belly, I'm just like, that's not gonna work. I get out of it. And if someone asks why, I say that just doesn't feel right in this time, this month. Let's circle back to that next year, especially for church too, where a church could be doing, I mean, anything under the sun. Just depends on what you want to
Yeah.
do. But for me, we try to be led by the Lord and say, okay, like if you feel like the Holy Spirit is leading us to do this, we do it. And even if we feel like it's going to be a push to say, oh, this is more than we normally do. But if it feels right and we feel a conviction, no, that we have to do this for this next 2 months, then we lean in. But it is driven by that. You use the word intuitive. It really is that. that
Yeah.
deep conviction to say, I really feel like this is right, and
Yeah.
talk to my wife about it or our leaders about it or whatever the case may be. And then we make a decision to move forward. Um,
Yeah. I'm curious, and it's if you don't have an answer to this, how much of kind of your, hey, I'm going to be in this for the long haul is just like practical wisdom. I don't want to burn out.
sure.
And how much, I mean, is there certain biblical principles or passages that have kind of rooted that conviction in you?
Yeah.
Um, and in terms of like how you set up to your life?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I feel like I've seen things. One of the things about me, I admire people who have done stuff for a long time. Like I think about, one of the greatest preachers I've seen, Bishop T.D. Jakes, right? He's been around. He's been preaching for 50 years, man, consistently, consistently doing ministry. And there's something about even the pastor I grew up with. His name is Bishop Hardy in Virginia. He's 80 years old, man, and he's been leading that church for literally 50 plus years, probably pushing 60 years. I mean, a long time. It's something about that I admire, that
Yeah.
people who have shown up week after week, and it could be anything, whatever your career is, but it's something about not, and I say that just because someone does something long doesn't mean they're good at it. They can just be there for a long time, but
Yeah.
there is something about, consistency. I value that. There's something about someone showing up, putting in the work, whether it's preaching, whether it's their career, whether it's their business, to where they've sacrificed for decades, man. That is something about that I admire. And so a part of me is I just admire that in people, that longevity, that willingness to, because I look at, if someone has done something for 20, 30 years, man, you've seen a lot,
Yeah.
and you've probably had a lot of chances to quit. You've probably had a lot of chances to give up, whatever that is. You've probably had a lot of chances to do other things, but for some reason you stuck it out, to see the fruit of another generation behind you. So one, I admire that. Two, I think biblically, man, the Bible talks about, this word, old school word, long suffering, or
Mm.
patience. The Bible. I heard another person say this. I believe his name was Pete Scazzaro, if I'm not mistaken. He was on a podcast and he was talking about how God is not in a rush. And he was talking about how Jesus, he said, when Adam fell in the book of Genesis, he fell and he sinned. He was saying how God could have sent Jesus right then. He could have sent the solution. He could have sent Christ to the cross, or he could have provided that perfect sacrificial lamb in Christ, 3 chapters after that, or 2 books after. He could have did it in Exodus. But God waited 42 generations to send Christ into the earth, to be this perfect sacrifice for our sins and to redeem mankind. And it really stuck with me that Pete Scazzaro said this, that God is not in a rush. God is not after this quick fix, but he's doing things over years, over generations, over days, over decades, over a father, a son, a grandson, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. He's doing this promise over years and years. And so when I look at the story of scripture, I don't see a God who's necessarily in a great rush to, hey, this has to be done right now. Like, no, I'm going to mold this group of people over these next 100 years. I'm going to mold this person over their life. I'm going to send Moses into the wilderness, into Egypt rather, for years, and then send him into the wilderness for another 40 years. And then I'm going to bring him to deliver the people of Israel. Moses, by definition, was an old man by the time
Oh
he
yeah.
gets to
Yeah.
Pharaoh and says, let my people go, right? That could have happened quickly, but God took time to develop something in Moses over years and decades, and then used him in a great way to be a deliverer. So when I look at the story of scripture, I see a God who does things over time and says, if you will stick with this over these years, if you will stay faithful over years and decades, I'll do something great through your life. And so that kind of helps me to keep the long view, about everything that we're doing, family, ministry, career, all of that.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, and now we're not at decades and decades yet, although 30 years from now, we'll be back on
Right.
sitting in our rocking chairs, drinking our sweet tea, talking about this.
Right.
But even the last 5, 6 years, I mean, what ways would you say I am a different Corey than I was in 2019 based on some of these rhythms and just practices over time?
Yeah, yeah. I think that one of the things that has helped me to grow, life will just do that to you anyway. It'll just
All
make
right.
you different. Either you grow and learn from it, or it eats you up. One of the things my father-in-law said to me, maybe like a year or so ago, he said, Corey, you can only do one thing at a time. And it was during a season where I was super stressed and I feel like I was dealing with a lot of anxiety about just trying to do so much, and with the job, with the family, all that stuff, trying to balance all of these juggling all these things. And it was a moment to where almost set me free. It's like, hey, you can only do one thing at a time. As much as we talk about multitasking,
Yeah.
that's kind of a myth. I mean, it's only
No,
one
for
thing
sure.
you can do,
Yeah.
And so whether you make your list or your to-do list, you can only check off one of those in an hour or two or 30 minutes or whatever your time frame is, or whatever, or in a week or a day. And so for me, I would say what has happened over the last 5 years is I've learned more how to focus, how to say, Corey, you can get all of this done, but you
Yeah.
may not get it all done today. But you can get it all done by Friday. You can get it all done by the end of the month. What it's helped me is to focus, kind of come down a little bit off of the high of the rat race and say, no, do one thing at a time. Finish that project, finish that call, finish that sermon, spend that time with your wife, go to the kids, play at the park for the next hour, do that, build that memory with them. And then when you're done, go on to the next thing. And so what has helped me over the last few years is to focus, is to come down, take your eyes off of all of the different things that you're trying to do. Set your eyes on one thing, accomplish that, and move forward, right? And that allows me, I think, in this particular time, to do all of the various things that we do. Is that it's a sense of extreme, not extreme, but a more refined focus to where you can't do it all by the end of the day.
Yeah.
But also too is giving myself some grace as well. Um, is to realize that, man, you're a man, you're a human. Yes, you have a lot of intellect, you have a lot of drive, you have a lot of ambition, but you're still a person at the end of the day, man. No one's asking you to be Jesus. No one's asking you to be God for them. Even with church, right? When we talk about when you think about church, you think about people always calling the pastor for stuff and that. But even for me, is recognizing even in the church context is that, Corey, you can't be God for people. You have to recognize your limitations even as a pastor of a church, to where you want to help point people to Jesus, but you can't be Jesus for them, right? You have to point them and you have to lead them to the best of your ability. And then you have to recognize your limitations as well, to say, I've done all I can do for you. I have to refer you to this person or this counselor
Yeah.
or this therapist or this financial coach or this new job. Like, I've done all I can do, and I have to give myself some grace to know that I have my limits as well. And I think that's helped in the last few years.
Yeah, the focus is helpful. I mean, the data shows it is not possible to multitask. What happens if you're doing two things at once is your brain's going back and forth, and actually takes you longer, and you do a worse job. So you can't multitask. When you're talking to one of my favorite authors, Cal Newport, he talks about, like, he writes about productivity and focus a lot. Last year, his most recent book was Slow Productivity, and in the book, he's like talking about how focusing on a few things at a time over the long haul. And he's like talking about some of like the great authors and artists and that sort of thing, and like reading some of their journals last couple hundred years, and how they would like meander and like sit at the park, or they would do this. They would do what we would say was nothing for, like, it seems like they're doing nothing for months at a time, and then they come up with this amazing work. And it's because they're allowing their mind to like focus and to slow down. That's really helpful. I'm curious. Speaking of focus, doing one thing at a time, for example, like sermon prep. So in my experience, a lot of pastors spend too much time on sermon prep. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
oh my goodness,
Wow.
because they are unfocused and undisciplined when they do it.
Yeah.
They're checking, every 15 minutes, they're checking their phone, checking email, checking social, whatever.
Yeah.
I imagine part of what's helping your focus is like, I got to do this at this time. And so I got to focus on. So like
Yeah.
for sermon prep, for example, when do you do it and what does that look like for you? What's your rhythm there?
Yeah, so normally I do it on Tuesday nights. That's my big night. So my wife and I try not to be out a lot of nights a week. Obviously we got kids. So I've set aside that one night to do, I mean, my goal is to get that thing 85% done. And I will get off work. Let's say I finish work at 4. I will drive to the church. I will grab some early dinner, whatever the case may be, and I'll stay there until maybe 9. Sometimes a little later, sometimes a little earlier, depends on how the message is going. But my goal is to, over this next 3 to 4 hours, I'm gonna finish this sermon, and
Yeah.
I do what you just said. I turn my notifications off, set my phone to the side, because I know if I don't finish if I don't hit my goal now, it's gonna weigh on my mind tomorrow when I have to work during the day, then we got Bible
Yeah.
study at night, and then Tuesday's gonna come and it's like, oh, we got to do this, and then Friday's gonna come, we got family night, and then Saturday's gonna come, and I'm gonna be sitting there Saturday evening at 7 o'clock, still, 40% halfway done with my message. Now I'm having to Saturday night special that thing. And I've done that before, so I'm not gonna act like I have. I've done that before,
Yeah.
and it's stressful. But what I've learned even more recently too is that when I hit that goal, let's say on Tuesday, when I hit that big goal, it makes the weeks go so much better
Oh yeah.
because for me, that's really, especially in a ministry context, that's the most important thing I want to do that week is finish
Yeah.
that message for Sunday. And it feels, I was talking to my mom about this. She was asking me about my sermon prep a couple weeks ago. And I told her, I said, when I finish that portion that early in the week, it feels like everything else I'm doing is easy. It's like, oh, go meet with this
Yeah.
person, go visit this meeting coming up. It's like, oh, that's. But if I don't finish that most important thing, it feels like everything else becomes a chore. Like, oh, why do I
Right.
have to meet with this person? Or, oh, why are they calling me? Oh, I have to go over and do this.
Yeah.
And why do
Yeah.
I have to send those budget things? But when I finish the most important thing, everything else becomes, it feels like, oh, this is just
Right.
normal part of just life. The
Yeah.
kids, we're going out, we're hanging out. But when I don't, it's like I'm sitting at dinner, supposed to have pizza night with the kids, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, so that third point of the message, I don't know, what am I going to say? It's this whole thing. And so that has
Yeah.
helped me talking about focus is to when I'm supposed, and I don't always do this, Dylan. Listen,
Right.
I don't
For sure.
always. Sometimes I pick up my phone and I'm looking. I'm like, "What are you doing? You're wasting time." All right.
Right.
So I'm as guilty as every other person in the entire world of not managing my time well at times. But I've really tried to get a lot more discipline about it to say, Corey, if you accomplish this thing, you know how you're gonna feel on Tuesday or Thursday. You're gonna feel great. Come Friday,
Yep.
you're gonna feel great. Come Saturday, you're gonna say, okay, now let me come back and Saturday I start to look it over again and kind of start to fill in, a little more introduction, a little more outro, kind of fill in of the gaps, refine, take out some stuff. But that part is easy when the meat of it
Yeah.
is done. So it's normally a Tuesday, big heavy lifting, and then I come back to it normally around Saturday, Saturday early, or sometimes Saturday later, refreshing it up. And then I look over it again. I get to church early and look over it again on Sunday morning for about 30 minutes or so. But by that time, I'm normally ready to roll. And then I get up and preach, and I can feel the difference. I can feel
Yep.
the difference when I'm preaching, when I've prepared early and when I've waited till the last minute. Like I can, if no one else can tell, I can tell.
Man, there's so much to say there. Again, one of my things is like productivity and focus, and it's not so that I can do a million things. It's like, hey, work hard and then rest and not be distracted. And I know most people listening to this probably aren't writing sermons, but I think this is a great example. So, a couple things come to mind. One, I'm not going to get to my whole sermon prep as well, but I have like a 4 hour chunk on Wednesday mornings where it's like I'm doing my primary study and writing. And like you, it's not 100% done, but it's like the bulk of it's done. And part of that is like when you just sit down, I have a goal, I'm going to be done by noon. Now, if I need to go longer or whatever, I will, but very rarely do I have to, because it's like, man, I'm going to focus and I'm going to do it. And so, I mean, that's a big thing. Another thing I just do this is like when people don't plan out their days. So you got this Google Calendar, I use mine, although mine's just all one color. What happens is like we get up in the morning, what are the things I have to do? And part of this depends on your job and how much, autonomy you have, that sort of thing. So I get it. We are naturally going to pick the easier things to do. And so what happens is we do the easy things first, and then the hard thing is weighing over us until we get to it.
Yeah.
So we're stressed
That's so
about it,
good.
but we're not doing it. And then we're spending like the best part of our day on the tasks that we could do when we're checked out, not paying attention. So I don't know if this is for you. I'm curious your thoughts on this. So part of, blocking out your calendar, which I do as well, is, hey, if I got an hour for this thing, whatever, like I almost always, depending on the task, will finish it sooner than even the time block because I said, here's the time I have allotted to it. Whereas if I just, here's a list of things I got to get to today,
That's a good point.
everything takes longer. So I don't know, like psychologically, how your experience has been. Hey, here's my calendar. Here's what I do. Do you find yourself getting things done sooner, not as quicker because they're on your calendar? How's that played out for you?
I don't know. I don't think I get it done. I
Okay,
think I probably do more taking till the deadline than I do getting it done sooner. But for me, it's if I get it done in the time, I'm good. Like
for sure.
if I say it's gonna take an hour and it takes an hour, I'm like, okay, this is the win. This is great.
Well,
Like
I guess I
I'm
should
good.
clarify too.
Yeah.
When I say sooner, I don't necessarily mean I planned an hour and it took me 45 minutes. It's like I planned an hour, I got it done in an hour.
Oh,
If I hadn't
right.
planned it at all, it would have taken me like 90
Oh
minutes or
yeah.
2 hours.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
listen, if I don't plan at all, then it's like it never gets done.
yeah,
Now it's over the course of 3 days when I could have done it on day one in the focus 3 hours. I get what you're saying.
right.
And I think that would be true for probably myself and for most people as well. I think that anytime you set that goal and that timeline and actually focus to do it, it's so much easier to get it done. I've even started using it's like a counter clock that I have on my work desk that I will set a time, like 60 minutes, 45 minutes. Hey, you need to finish these 3 cases in this next 60 minutes, whatever the case would be. And a lot of times I will, and sometimes I'll get to the end of it and I'm not done, but I've done more than I would have done if I
Oh, for
did not
sure.
focus and set that
Yeah.
time. So yeah, to your point, sometimes setting that time is definitely helpful for me, and I'm sure it's helpful for most people as well.
Yeah. 'Cause I also think too, there's a psychological component to this where I just know if it's on my calendar, I'm going to get to it. And so like I'm not stressed out, worried about it all the time because it's going to happen. So again, I'm just going to use a sermon prep example because we're talking about it, but you could, whatever your job is, whatever, I'm sure that you could think about this. One of the issues I see with pastors is like they don't put their prep on their calendar. They're trying to like meet people, do whatever. And it's like whenever they get to it. So they're stressed out every week because like they're not even sure like when it's going to be done. Is it going to be done? Man, if you have it on your calendar, whatever task you have, it's like I know because I've been doing this, over the years. It's like if it's on my calendar, I'm going to get to it.
Yeah.
So to what you're saying is like I don't have to be thinking about it all the time. Like you're done Tuesday night. You got the bulk of the sermon done. It's not 100% done, but it's like I'm like I know it's going to get done. Even like Monday or Tuesday before you work on it, you're probably not like stressing out about it because your brain knows
Yeah.
if it's on my calendar, it's going to get done. And I think for like our culture today, a lot of people are very reactive with their time, not proactive. And so I just find again, if it's scheduled out, even if I've got like a lot of stuff to do that day,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily stressed about it because it's there and I know I'm going to get to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny to that point, even about leaving on the calendar, is that there was a guy I used to be at my church, and he was at my house one day. We were doing rehearsal. He was at my house, and I happened to pull up my calendar on my computer, and he was like, "You have all that stuff on your calendar." He was a younger guy. Now he wasn't married at the time, so young guy, no kids. So I get it. He was just working. He said, "You got all that stuff," and I'm like, "Yeah, man, because like I got a family, I got church, man, I got the white kid." I'm like, I have to put this on my calendar, or
Yeah.
I'm not gonna remember it because at this point I can't remember all these things. And then two, yeah, man, I'm trying to keep my life rolling. I'm trying to keep it organized. So yeah, I got to put all this stuff. I have to color coordinate it because if I don't put it on this calendar, there's a 9 out of 10 chance that I'm just gonna forget. And I've gotten to the point now where like I kind of not that I somewhat mentally put it out of my mind. Oh, if next Tuesday I have an appointment with blank, I put it on my calendar. Okay, I'll start
Right.
thinking about that on as I'm checking the calendar on Monday or Sunday. I'm looking, oh, tomorrow, yeah, I got that with this and that as I'm preparing. But it does kind of free up some mental space to the point where I don't see how people live without a calendar.
Bro.
There was another person
Bro.
I was coaching. And I was like, you need a count. I don't understand. You're missing stuff because you're not like you mean you just wake up and you're just, oh, what do I have to do? Oh, in your mind. I had to lean on this person really hard, like, hey, I want in the next 3 weeks, you need to have a calendar right now. You need to get it. I don't care if it's handwritten. If you like writing with highlighters, fine. But I do not understand as an adult, especially with a family too. I'm like, how do you keep all that stuff? So I'm a big advocate of that. And I tell anybody, like, hey, get a calendar, put it on there. That way you can free up some mental space to focus on today, tomorrow. And as you're planning for next week, now you're checking your calendar and you're ready to roll.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
I
maybe
definitely-
I'm a little more predisposed to that
Yeah,
organization
I mean,
as
I
well.
just think
I
there's
might
like,
be.
yeah, there's certain wirings that different people have, but there's
Yeah.
also just like wisdom
Yeah.
and getting things done. And sometimes it's funny to me as you're saying this, I calendar that sort of thing, set up meetings with people, and it's typically someone who's like in their 20s or younger, and they probably haven't really developed a skill of like planning their day, and like they'll pick a time on my calendar for like next week, and they'll text me that morning, hey, we still on for today? And like for me, it's like if it's on my calendar, I'm there. But I'm like,
Yeah.
and then it's not like a judgment. I'm like, oh, you probably aren't used to having anything on your calendar, and because to schedule with me, you had to pick a time that went on your calendar. You're like, well, it says 11, but it's like, is this still happening?
All right.
And so I always laugh. I'm like, oh yeah, you probably aren't used to like if it's on the calendar, I'm
Yeah.
gonna show up.
Yeah.
I don't.
Or
Okay.
when people are like, sometimes for my job, they're like, hey, can you text? And I'm making an appointment with like, maybe a reference or something. They're like, hey, can you text me before the meeting? I'm like, no, man, like I'll put it on the calendar right now. I'm
Yeah.
going to call you at 11 o'clock next Wednesday. I'm not reminding you. Put it on your own
Right.
calendar.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not doing that. The calendar is
Yeah.
the reminder. This call is your reminder. So
So this might sound basic, but if somebody's listening to this and like, man, I should probably calendar more, and they're overwhelmed by it. Like, is any tips or tricks? Is it like just open Google Calendar, put in there, like anything that you've done over the years? How do you manage your time? How do you input stuff? I don't know if there's anything there, but
yeah. Well, I would say the only tip I probably have is different from you. I would say color coordinate. The color coordinate helps you if you're visual like that. But if there's someone like you that they don't care, then so be it. I don't necessarily have a great tip. I think get Google Calendar, but use something. Just use something. And I've tried a couple others before. I can't remember the names of them, but Google Calendar seemed to be the best one. But yeah, I it's one of those things of like, You got to start somewhere. Whatever your system is, you got to use something to get on the calendar. And because most people have their phone 99.9% of the time in their hand, in their back pocket, in their purse, it's easy to have an app and just roll like that. So I would just say
Yeah.
use something. If you don't have any type of calendar, get on some type of system.
Yeah. And then I guess the tip there would be put it like if you're like have a meeting or whatever, put it in your calendar like right then. Don't think I'll do
Right.
it tonight, I'll do it
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Because you
Just
forget.
put it there and you can color coordinate and do all the things if you want, but just start
You
somewhere. I
have
think that's
yours
helpful.
blue. That's interesting. I would have
I
never
think that was
guessed.
just the default, and then I was
Yeah.
like, I guess you could do different ones, but then I was like, every time I got to put it, this is just every time I got to put a count, schedule something, I guess I have to go in there and change the color
Yeah.
to the
Yeah. That's
appropriate
a good
thing,
point.
which it takes like 5 seconds.
I
So
think maybe for me it's the mental part. When I
yeah,
see the color, I mentally know what I'm walking into. A
yeah,
work thing? Is this a
I
church
should try
thing?
it.
I don't know.
I should
But
try it.
hey, man,
No, I
listen.
should try it.
No,
Yeah.
you're further along than me, so maybe
No,
I'll
I don't know,
look.
bro.
I'm gonna change mine to all one color
No, I don't
today.
think so. I think the color. I've heard of multiple people talk about the
Yeah,
benefit of different colors. I've just been like, I don't know,
doesn't make
it's
any
blue,
sense.
but I should do that. So we're talking about productivity, getting things done. Hopefully that's helpful. Obviously, marriage. So you and your wife have been married how long?
11 years. 11
11
years.
years.
It'll be
Okay. And how
12
old are your
in next
kids?
month. A daughter is 9, and my son is 6. Elena and
Yeah.
Ezra.
So like right there, our kids are like 1 year older on each of those. Um, Man, so let's talk about like marriage. How's the marriage gone for you? What have you learned over the years? Mistakes you've made?
Yeah,
People want to have a good marriage. Yeah, let's start
yeah.
there.
I think that I'll start with one of the things I've learned. Just start on a high note. One of the things that helped me early on was always recognizing that we're on the same team, and what I mean by that is that let's say, for example, we have an argument, we have a disagreement. It was a mindset shift for me to say, wait a minute, whatever we're on the same team.
Yeah.
We're both sports analogy, right? We're both trying to win the game. We're both trying to score. We both want to have a healthy marriage. We both want to do well financially. We both want to have a stable home. We both want to have raise great kids, right? We established that, right? We both want the same thing, a good marriage. Let's start with that. But sometimes our way to get there may differ, or we just may disagree on the process or on the journey to get there. But for me, it was a mindset shift to realize this woman is on the same team as me. I am on the same team as this woman, as my wife, right? We're both in this together. We both want to win. So I recognize that when we have a disagreement, I recognize that she is for me and I am for her. We may disagree in this moment on this particular money thing or this particular thing with our family. We may disagree on we may just be angry today. But when I recognize that she's for me, we're on the same team and we want the same thing, it kind of took out some of the division in our marriage early on because okay, hey, no, we're in this together. Now let's talk about the details of this situation. Let's talk about this particular argument. Let's talk about what you said here or what I said or what I've done. Let's talk about where I missed it. But I know you're for me, right? And I think that's one of the things early on that really helped me to say, no, this is my wife. This is my ride or die. She's for me. I'm for her. Let's now work out the details and let's compromise to make our marriage better. But I know you're for me. And what I realize is that if I don't think you're for me, now it's like, now you're an enemy. If I don't think my spouse is for me, it's like, well, wait a minute. Now, are we even, whoa, this is going into another territory to where now we're not, this is not, this is a marriage, but this is now I'm seeing you more as an enemy than a teammate who disagrees on how we ran this play. Right. But when I know we're on the same team, now I know, okay, we can just work out the details of the process and still work towards the same goals. So I would say that's probably the first thing that really helped me probably year 2, year 3 of our marriage, that teamwork
Yeah.
aspect.
Was there like a particular person or book or like what gave you that mindset? Somebody tell you that? Like how did that start to
Yeah.
click for you? Or you
To
just,
be honest, man,
yeah,
listen, I not that I'm so, amazing or anything.
yeah,
I can't say, early on,
yeah,
I don't know where I got the idea from.
yeah,
I don't know, but I think just in the process of watching other people and watching other marriages. So for example, like my parents have been married, over 40 years now. My wife's parents have been married going on close to 40 years. So
yeah,
I think for us, and I always try to say this because I think the examples that you see determine a lot as well.
yeah, for
And
sure.
we both had examples, not that our parents are perfect, but we both had examples of people who have stuck it out for the long haul, who have seen them work out disagreements and things like that, but have seen them after 40 years say, no, we're still together. We're in this together. So I think my wife and I, it's almost like I have to acknowledge the benefit that we have, is that my wife and I have seen examples of marriages last and stick it out through the highs and lows. And so I think we may have, especially in today's culture, we may have somewhat of a not an unfair advantage, but we just had
Yeah.
we had a good start because we had good parents that modeled that for us as well. And so it may have been just kind of seeing their examples as well, the good examples, the good parts of it, to kind of help us to try to take the long view and stick
Yeah.
together.
That's good. I'm curious too. I mean, you've got the church and your job, and our church. She's got um, she's selling like candles. What is she doing? What's her whole thing?
She
I
does,
know more
yeah.
than that.
Yeah. She does natural products. So
Okay.
she does soap right now and
Yep.
natural like care products, body care products, facial
Yeah.
products, and stuff like that. Yeah.
So we got two kids. So how many? What's in this season of life? 9 and 6. What are some rhythms you guys have found helpful? How do you guys guard your time? Obviously, like Tuesday nights, you got to do your thing.
Yeah.
There's going to be times where she's got to do her thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you got the kids. So what are some like rhythms that you guys have found well? Maybe it's like, hey, we tried this, this didn't work, or we're in a stressful season, and then we realize, oh, this is how it works. Like, how does it work for you?
Yeah.
And all you guys got going on?
I think in this season's one, like we talked about earlier, I mentioned the Tuesday night thing, but that's the only night that I'm out during the week for church stuff. It's no other night. Like I'm not available. I don't go out unless we're all going together or something like that. So I would say it's keeping that, keeping my commitments, keeping our commitments down in the evening. Kids get off the bus. We got dinner. We got tutoring. We got all that stuff, homework. We get involved in that. Like I'm involved doing homework with the kids, and so is my wife as well. So I think it's sticking to blocking out, knowing when you're not available so that we can get with them and be with the kids. But I think too, we do Friday nights. We have movie night, pizza every Friday night. Now I need to lay off the pizza, man. I tell you, I got to get down to one slice and just be done. But we do stuff like that. Like that's been for the last probably like 6 months to a year. We've done Friday nights where we do pizza. We do, stuff like that. We watch a movie. I try to stick to where Saturdays, we go out, go to the store. We go out to, my wife mentioned even earlier with Easter being around the corner,
Yeah.
going out to, some type of Easter event. We do stuff like that. I feel like for us, we just make time, Dylan. That's the truth of the
Yeah.
matter. I'm fumbling through it because the best way I can say it is that we make time. It's not all the time. But I try to, for us, I try to be upfront with the kids to not leave them out in the dark of not knowing what's happening. Like even, for example, even recording this podcast, they're out of school today, so they're here at the house. I don't know, hey, for the next hour, I'm going to be recording this. Hey, after that, I'm available for the rest of the day to do whatever. We can go out, we can hang out, right? So I've always, even when they were younger, tried to tell them, hey, we're doing this for this amount of time. And after
Yeah.
that, we're doing blank. Or even more recently, we went through a massive move with our church, which was a lot of work and a lot of time. But we tried to involve them in it. Hey, we're all going to paint today, right? So kids, pick up a brush, and that's a little thing, but it's like, hey, we're all doing this. Hey, we all lead this church. So we try to, even as they get older, involve them in the things as well. I'll give you a great example of this with my wife. She does this much better, way better than I do. Even for her business, she has my daughter will sit there, they will make products together. She's shown my daughter how to make the body butters, and they'll make soaps, and she sits there with her and stirs up the stuff. And even if she's not selling it for business, she makes her own little batch for my daughter that she uses. And so my wife has done a great job of saying, hey, I know I'm making stuff for work, but let's make some stuff together. And that's what they will spend. They will sit over there for an hour making products and making soaps. So that's a way of, for my wife and myself, it's not putting our life on hold because we have kids,
Right.
but it's saying, hey, we still have ambitions, and I'm still driven with the ministry. My wife loves doing her
Right.
business, but hey, come on, let's do it all together. Like, and so even lastly, I'll say this, even with my son, and he stopped doing this, a few months ago now, but for a couple months, he was kind of like, hey, I want to come to church early with you. And I'm like, oh, like, yeah, like you could come, I'm leaving 7:30 in the morning on Sunday, but for a couple weeks, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month or so, he was getting up early to come with me, and he would come and sit in my office while I was looking on my message. And like, even little stuff like that was just like, man, like how can I bring him more into that process to where it doesn't seem like I'm just off doing that, but whatever I'm doing, hey, trying my best to bring them into it and not making it family time, business time, church time, but like, oh, this is all family time. We're just doing it together.
Yeah.
So
Now you said something. I always want to highlight this. You talked about how we've got our kids, but you still have it. You guys still have ambitions of your own, and I just want to like emphasize that a lot. I think our culture basically teaches you when you have kids, your life's over, and it's like, nah, man. Like you got stuff, you got ambitions. You just bring them along for the ride. Like
Yeah.
do it with them, and you'll be more satisfied for it. So a couple months ago, I read this book called "Get Married" by Brad Wilcox. Came out last year, and it's just all this data. And basically, not surprisingly, he's like, "You've been lied to." Everyone says like, "Hey, have sex with as many people as you want. Don't have kids until way later,
Mhm.
because they'll hold you down." And it's basically, it's not even close. People that are married, people that have kids, they are the most. They're not just the happiest. No, sorry, they're not just the most satisfied and have the most meaningful lives. Where people might be like, "Yeah, I get that." They're also the happiest, and it's not even close. Now, caveat: if you're not married, you want to get married, that's hard. If you're struggling to have kids and fertility, yeah, that's hard. But I'm just saying, generally speaking, and there are always exceptions. It's not even close. And the book, I mean, and it's all data. What I appreciate, it's not anecdotal. It's not like, well, in my experience. And so in the book, and he like, I was kind of surprised. He like goes after like the New York Times, like certain journalists who have written articles, basically saying like being single is amazing, having flings amazing, divorce is amazing. And he didn't say this, but I was like, as he was like quoting all these articles, it was funny to me that all these articles were just anecdotal. Our experience, people who divorce in their 40s are happiest they've ever been, but there's like no data behind it. So he's got all this data. And it's like, if you want to be happy in life, you should get married, you should have kids. He talks about like, hey, like bring your kids along with you. It doesn't stop. So I just want to say like, if you're listening to this and you're younger, you have been lied to. You should get married and you should have kids and you should keep doing your thing and you will be more grateful to it. Yes, it's harder, but it's like, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for the world, man. Like
Right.
it's amazing
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
them with us. So
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, it's life, so it is hard. Yeah, some things about marriage can be hard. I'm, you know how you mentioned earlier how you are one of those um, pastoring. Being a pastor doesn't have to be the hardest thing in the world. Like there are things about it that are hard, but every job has its thing. I kind of am like that a little about marriage. I'm like sometimes people make it like, no, this is the
oh
worst,
yeah.
man. I tell you, it's gonna break you, man. That woman's gonna, and I'm just like, and I'll say that hasn't been my experience. Is that
Yeah.
I heard this phrase from my old pastor, Bishop Hardy, a long time ago. He would always say, marriage is what you make it, and he said, he would always say, you get out of it what you put into it. And as always, there's always exceptions where someone marries a crazy
Right.
person and they're a psycho and somebody abusive, a adulterer, some stuff. There's always that. And I feel for
Right.
everyone in that situation who married thinking they're marrying this great woman or great guy and they turn out to be a crazy person. And I really feel for that. But generally, most people, it's not always a crazy person. It's like,
Yeah.
you kind of get out of what you put into it. Like, and if you're not healthy and healed and whole as a person, it's going to be hard to have a healthy, healed and whole marriage as well. And if you treat, for example, if you treat your spouse like garbage, and are not there for them, it's like, what do you expect, man? Like, you can't
Right.
talk to, you can't, and I always say, you can't say things like that to your spouse. Like, why would you say that to them? Why would you call your spouse that name? Like, this is the person that you love. Like, there's some things, yeah, they're just words, but you can't take those words back. Like, we don't speak to each other with that type of disrespect. We honor one another and not perfect, but if I do it wrong, you apologize, man. You say, I'm sorry, honey. I missed that. I shouldn't have said. I was just angry. I literally just did that this morning. I said, honey, I was saying that quickly. I should have, I was thinking about something else. Hey, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to say that like that. Like, those little things for me are important because it builds a sense of trust and a sense of, you know, I'm not just married to some ball and chain. Like, no, we're in a
Right.
relationship, and there's an element of respect that we have to have just for our humanity and for one another. And so I'm like you, I would say to anybody listening who's maybe not married or doesn't have kids, is maybe apprehensive, maybe on the fence. It's like, I would say take that leap. If you found someone that you feel like you can be with, that you can honor, that you can respect, and they honor and respect you and love you, take that leap. It is not this, your life is over. Like, no, like
Right.
your life is starting in a new way and there will be
Yeah.
changes that you will have to make. But I believe that you can make those changes and continue to live life and live it fully.
Right.
If you have someone that you're seeing eye to eye with. So I would
Yeah.
encourage people to don't wait till you're 50, and
Yeah,
then,
man.
now if you don't find someone and you're 50 and you're
Right.
single, that's different. But, if you have the opportunity and you want to, I would say go for it.
Yeah. It's so funny, man. Just having this conversation again, have reading that book called Get Married, it was very refreshing and obviously it was awesome. Last night, as I recorded this, I spoke at Crew at NC State in Meredith, so this college ministry here in Raleigh. And what I wanted to say so bad, I mean, I didn't because it wasn't part of the message or whatever. But I was like, I just wanted to like add on there, hey guys, you should like meet someone and marry them in here.
Yeah,
Like this is the easiest it's gonna get. Like you got hundreds of college students,
that's a
you
good
all
point.
pursuing Jesus. I was like, you guys should try to figure this out before you graduate and leave. Anyway, I do want to highlight something you said as well. I think people often talk about how like marriage is hard, and there are definitely hard things to it. But then the message, I think, especially for people who are single or the people who are married and hear everyone else say it's hard is like, well, I guess it's just hard. And it's like, there are hard things about it,
Yes.
but I think sometimes how we talk about it's like, man, it's just so hard and difficult and exhausting all the time, and that is not true. There are hard things about it, but it's a net positive if you're doing it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think what you said there was wise.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. It can be hard, but it's, and different, and the thing is, what it is just different times and seasons of life can make it more
Sure.
challenging.
Yeah.
Anytime you're, moving, job transitions, health challenges, when those things, money challenges, it's not always that it's the marriage. It's like
Right.
life around it, So if you lose
Yeah.
your job, yeah, it might make marriage hard. We're trying to
Right.
make money, or if one of you guys gets sick, that makes it hard. We get a little more testy. Something happens with the kids, right? Kids get in trouble at school. We're trying to find out why they're failing, math class. That could lead to some tense conversations between
Yeah.
us. So sometimes it's not that me and you, honey, aren't seeing eye to eye. Sometimes life around it adds on this pressure to where it's like, oh, the bills paying, oh, we got to pay this and this adding up, and then our budget and the money, and then we're having to move, and then the job changes, and then you throw in, extended family members and conflict and stuff like that. That adds on to making it feel like it's just a marriage, and
Right.
it may not be just a marriage. It may
Right.
just be life is getting harder in this last six
Yeah.
months, and it's making me and
Yeah.
my wife get at each other a little more than we normally would if the bills were all paid.
Right.
So
It's like, as you're saying this, I don't remember who I heard this from, but someone was talking about marriage and they were saying, it's not that marriage is hard, it's that life is hard and you're just married. So all these examples you just gave, like, that's just life.
yeah,
It's not
life.
the marriage's fault.
Yeah,
It's just like
yeah,
life is
yeah.
hard and you just happen to be married. And so you navigate it together. Um, yeah, that's really great. This wasn't a preconceived topic, but I just kind of popped in my mind. I'd be curious to kind of get maybe some of your principles, some wisdom around money and finances. So, I mean, you guys are multiple jobs, the church, her job, she's got her job. Obviously, you're a pastor, so we talk about money as well. I don't know. Again, this is kind of a broad, general question, but when I say like money and finances, what are some like wisdoms, principles for handling money well that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think that, well, man, listen, when it comes to church money, the best advice you gave me was talk about it freely, openly, as if it's normal. I still contend that's the best advice I've ever gotten leading a church
Wow.
about money. I'm serious. And I tell people that all the time. So I would say that's a church related thing, but I know this is not for pastors.
Yeah.
But just in a personal sense as well, man, listen, I've been preaching about money for the past couple weeks at church, so I've been thinking a lot about it. But man, things like budgeting, things like
Yeah.
making sure you know where your money is going, that helps because, listen, man, even if you make a little bit of money, you got to budget it. If you make a small amount, 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, 60, 100, whatever, you got to know where it's going. Because if you don't know, I tell people, even for my job, I have to ask people about their finances sometimes. And some people have a lot of bills to pay and debts, and they'll be talking, and I'm like, hey, so how much do you owe on this credit card or that? And they're like, I don't know. I just haven't looked at it. And it's like, not looking at it doesn't make it better. Like not looking at it doesn't help, not
Yeah.
looking at your bank account or not looking at your statements or not looking at how much you owe. It doesn't help. And sometimes it's a gut punch. If you look at an account, you're like, I didn't know it was that much in the interest. But you got to take that gut punch so you can know how far you got to go to get out of this hole. And so I think for us, we've always lived on not always, but I would say in the last, I found Dave Ramsey probably 9 years ago. So I went through this whole Dave Ramsey phase. I read a book of his and podcasts and all that stuff. And it really helped us, get on a budget, man. Like know what you're doing. And there've been sometimes where we've done it better than others. There've been sometimes we paid off stuff and then we had to pay it off again. Like it sucks. But it's coming down to being able to say no, living on an active budget. And also too, man, thinking about the future as well to say, if I don't do this now, like, what am I trading off when I'm 45? What am I trading off for when I'm 50? What am I trading off for when I'm 60? And so I try to think about, at 50-year-old Corey, like, what are you doing now to help the 50-year-old version of yourself? When there's more gray, like, what are you doing now to where when there's more gray, you don't have more stress because you didn't manage it well, today?
Yeah, I think too, part of it, go back to our discussion on like your a calendar. Money's the same way, man. If you don't budget your time, then you're always going to be reacting. And if you
Same
don't
thing.
budget your finances, like I get it's hard and it's like nobody wants to do it. We're big budgeters and, we do premarital people we'll talk about all the time. And like, I'm not trying to like make someone do it, but you will always spend more and it's like not even close. And everyone's like, well, I just try to make sure it's like balanced and, I have more coming in than going out. You will always spend more money. And what's interesting is I think people might conceptually be like, yeah, I probably spend more than if I had budgeted. You spend way more than you think, not just a little more. like a
Yeah.
lot of more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you can't do certain things you want to do. And so I think that's helpful. I'm
Yeah.
curious too. Again, you've been studying it recently. Talk to us about generosity,
Yeah. Yeah.
giving, and the part that plays.
Yeah. I think that so, and the thing about generosity is it's like it's not just the money, right? When you really lean into your generosity, you start to get generous in everything.
Yeah.
You start to have to say, well, wait, I can't be generous with my money. But then I start to say, hey, how can I be generous with my encouragement? Right? How can I be generous with my compliments to people? Right. And so with generosity, when I think about it, I'm like, man, it's in Proverbs, it says that those who refresh others will be refreshed. Right. And so I started to think, man, like if I've been looking for encouragement, I've been wanting people to encourage me. I've been wanting people to be kinder to me. It's like, how am I generous with my kindness? How am I generous with my compliments? So when I see someone doing something well, yeah, I could give them money, but how can I say, hey, man, you're really doing a great job with that, man. Like, oh, I really like that. What you got on that outfit is amazing. Oh my God. Even, someone gives me some advice, man, thank you for that advice. That piece of advice you gave me, man, that really stuck with me. Like, I think about it like that to where generosity goes so much further than it goes far beyond just the money aspect. And really, man, it comes down to really a heart, condition at the end of the day. If you're stingy in your heart, if you feel like you have to hoard everything that you get, someone else said earlier, like, if you have a closed hand, nothing comes in, nothing goes out. And it really has to start, inside, man. But I challenge people too. I was telling someone, I can't remember where it was, maybe in the last couple messages, but I would say, man, start small. Start small. Start by doing something slightly uncomfortable. Like when you talk about being generous, no one's saying go give your entire paycheck to the guy or the woman who may be standing at the corner outside of your neighborhood. No one's saying do that, man. But I even told people on Sunday at church, I was like, or maybe Wednesday, I said, if you've never, for example, we see the example of someone asking for money at the corner, right? We've all seen that. Let's say you've never done it before. How about today, instead of judging that man about he needs to get a job of this, how about give the man $3? How about start with something small? How about taking out the judgment because you don't know how that person ended up there. You don't know what life afforded them. And my dad said this a while ago because he would be the same way. He would say, man, that guy needs to get a job and all this stuff. But then he started to realize, man, you don't know if his mom died yesterday. You don't know if his wife left him. He might have lost his house. His dog died. His best friend might have, talked about him. What, you don't know. He might have lost everything all in 1 month and might have had a
Yeah.
mental breakdown to end up at the corner. And so I've challenged people, even with the financial stuff, how about we stop judging what everyone else needs to do and just say, hey, man, this is what I can do. I can give you a 5. I can give you a 10. I can give you a 20. Or you know what? Hey, what do you need from the store? I'm going to go right to the grocery store and I'll buy it for you. I'll get you a sandwich or whatever. Like even just the little things, man. And I think when people hear generosity, sometimes they think about just the big stuff. I bought someone a car or, this church gave this person millions, thousands of dollars. It's like, it doesn't even start there. It starts with the small thing. I've never even given anyone anything. I'm slow with my compliments to people. Start by giving someone a compliment on Monday morning at work. Instead of looking for one, go and give out one. Start being generous in that way.
Yeah, that's helpful. Another topic that might be a little touchy is like, let's kind of, or it's coming to the end here. It's kind of like some free fire.
Yeah.
I'm curious, politics, how that's been going, like, especially with your church, with your people. We're recording this in April. So obviously the election happened 6 months ago and, people from all different walks of life, all different persuasions. How does that impact you personally? Is that something like you talk a lot with people or
Yeah.
how do you help people that some people are like super post about all the time. Some people kind of ignore it altogether. What's that been like for you these last 6 months?
I think I fall on the spectrum of someone who I don't ignore it, but I don't get heavily involved in it. And I think I've decided for me that a lot of that is beyond my control. And so I personally, this is me personally now, for your listeners may be different, but I've personally not heavily involved in politics. I try to keep an eye on major things. Obviously the election, I go and vote and things like that,
Right.
but I don't get to argue with people about their policies and all that because I feel like for me personally, it's not an area where I feel like my energy is best served. And but I've even found and I know churches, especially in the last few years it could be whatever, different churches are different. Our church, I don't hear a lot about it. Not a lot of people are hitting me with political comments or takes or Pastor, what do you think about this that happened? What do you think about this recent policy? I don't get a lot of those questions from our church. Now, the reason for that, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. But I feel like in the course of my life, in the course of my circles, and even the course of ministry, I don't get a lot of hot takes and a lot of, political division. That hasn't been something that I have personally seen in my ministry experience up until this point, for whatever reason. Now, the thing is, as you see, I got a lot of black folks in my church, predominantly black folks. I think of one white person in my entire church. So black folks get excited about stuff that affect black people, right? So, I don't know if you've seen recently, there's been a pastor that's called for a boycott of Target because they rolled back DEI policies. For the last 40 days, it's been going on. He's been challenging black people not to shop at this store because this store doesn't support DEI initiatives and all that, right? And so I think that's been a thing that's been kind of a rolling thing, amongst the black community. It's like black folks, they care about the policies, but it's sometimes they're kind of like me, like, hey, listen, if it ain't affecting my community, I'm good. But once it starts to impact black people specifically, it's like, wait a minute. Like when Target rolled back DEI things, it was kind of like it was taken as this is a thing that affects black people. Now let's get more involved. So I feel like I've seen more of that. But I guess overall, to answer your question, I don't have strong political takes I don't necessarily lean on strong political takes in my ministry experience in my life because I really feel like that's not where my energy is best served.
Yeah.
Me personally. So.
Yeah, as you share, this isn't really a political take either, but one of the things you mentioned is like, it is like the whole outside of our control. We grew up in like social media started to be a thing. And then I feel like, 10 years ago, it was like, even 5 years ago, it was like you had to virtue signal everything. You had to change your profile picture for every single war. Yeah. You had to make a comment about every shooting or everything that happened anywhere in the world. And it's become like, there was this pressure as like pastors, you got to comment. And if you don't even like post about it, then like you're not. And it became so much. My thing is like, I'm the same way. I mean, I vote and I like have convictions and I listen to it, but I have increasingly, I think part of it is just the exhaustion of the online world in which we live. Sure. I've increasingly been like, trying to tell people like, it doesn't, all this stuff we get so worked up about doesn't affect you. Now it might affect some people you care about or something, but it's like and not just that doesn't affect you, it's outside of your control to do anything about it. And so like I have increasingly, and again, this is just my story. New City is 8 years in, and it used to be the first half of New City's existence. If there was like a big thing, we had to make a comment on it on Sunday morning. And now like, don't really make a comment on like hardly anything. And like, obviously if I see something like happening, war or whatever, like I'll pray for it and I'll think about it, but it doesn't like, I don't spend a lot of personal energy on it. And part of you is like, you should, how dare you should care. That's what our culture says. But like, man, I got enough stuff going on here. Yeah. And so like, I want good and I don't want evil. And it's like, but it's like, I can't think about this stuff all the time and I can't do anything about it. And so it's like, I don't even, at this point, like, don't even feel the pressure to like say anything to most cultural issues.
I do care. Like, I don't ever want anyone to think I don't. Right. It's not that I don't care, but I really have to try to manage my stress. I'm like, guys, I can't be involved in everything. I don't know every single thing. Some of that stuff is literally beyond my control. But I think too, and I think I heard maybe like Ed Stetzer say this maybe a couple years ago. I was listening to him talk about something, but he had mentioned like there were like 3 or 4 things starting with the pandemic to like, this was maybe early 24, late 23 time. He was like, there was maybe like 3 or 4 things maybe that you should have said something. You need a comment to your church. Your church needs to know where you stand. He mentioned one was like when Roe v. Wade, when that happened, was that 2 years ago now? 2 or 3 years ago now when that happened. He was like, that may be a moment you might need to let your church know where you stand. And I did. My church, we were in a hotel still during that time. And I remember going up and I had my statement and I read out some things where we stand on that, right? When all the things, when election season comes up, I generally will say something. I don't generally say a ton, but I will generally try to encourage people, one, to don't lose your head, guys, over the next 4 months, 6 months, whatever, reminding people that any candidate is not Jesus that we're voting for. This is a political candidate. We're voting for a presidential candidate for this country. And that is the president for the entire country, not the president of the Church of Jesus Christ. So I try to remind people of that election seasons, but it's been, I will say it's been a couple, maybe 2 to 3 things where I felt like I've needed to, from the pulpit, I need to address this, right? And I will, but every small thing, because then it becomes, as you know, you getting up there now, you got political takes every Sunday. That's unhealthy. That's not necessary. That's not our job to do that. But I do believe there are some things that you should stand up,
For sure.
and you should
Yep.
say something and say where you stand, even if whether people agree or disagree.
Right.
Your congregation should know. I know this is not for pastor, but the people should know where you stand, pastor, and where the
You're right.
church stands. I do believe that
Yep.
for sure. And there are a few things where we should be flat-footed about that and let those who agree or disagree kind of fall where they fall.
Well, I would even say pressing in on that a little bit, not just for pastors. I mean, everyday people. And I'm not saying in your
Sure.
workplaces you need to go and make a
All
comment or
right.
whatever,
Right. Right.
but like we shouldn't be. We should be bold with like, here's what we believe
Yeah.
about life and about gender and sexuality, about
Of
forgiving other
course.
people, about
Yes.
befriending people that maybe everyone else in the office doesn't like, or it's just like it shouldn't be like necessarily shocking, that we hold a certain position with grace and truth,
Absolutely.
and so again, it's not like you just like a pastor has to go like proclaim every single issue, or you got to go in your workplace and be like, oh, so Roe v. Wade, but it's like or whatever. It's maybe that whatever example. It's like it shouldn't be necessarily shocking that you're a Christian to your coworkers,
Right. That's a good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for what it's worth. Um, well, Corey, man, I appreciate what you're doing, your faithfulness, the friendship that we've had over these years. We talked about work, life, marriage, all the good stuff. I want to give a couple of shout outs as we come to a close. First, what's the name of your wife's company?
The name of it is Samora Home. Simora Home. You can find her
And
on TikTok, Instagram, and all of that.
that's right. My wife is I think a monthly purchaser or whatever.
I
She has
hear.
her on the recurring, and so we got the soap. So I can highly recommend those. And then
Nice.
you also got a podcast. You talk about cultural ministry, that sort of thing. What's
We
that? And
do,
also,
yeah.
where can people find you on the socials because you're active?
Yeah, we do have our podcast. We've taken a break from our podcast since we started moving our church, so we plan to pick that back up. It's called The Culture and the Cross, and we're on streaming platforms and podcast platforms and on YouTube, on our Rock Church YouTube page as well. So we'll be picking that back up at some point in the future, hopefully soon. But you can find me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Corey Butler Live. That's generally where I'm at on Instagram, on Threads. But you can find our church at rockraleigh.com. It's the Rock Church in North Raleigh area. So we just moved to a new building, and I'm excited for our first Easter in that new building
That's
coming
awesome.
up here. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Corey, thanks for the time and thanks for what you're doing.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks.